I'm live. Look at y'all. I'm over here messing up already. What's going on, y'all? This is King Speak. We are in season 2. Let me get that going. There we go. Season 2, episode 6, the state of man's heart. Yes, I thought it was important to talk about man's heart posture, how they're feeling, just checking in. So I'm going to ask some questions to an amazing guest of mine, fitness instructor, Jamaal instructor. I've been doing that all morning. Fitness instructor, Jamaal. So he's here to join us. So you guys stick around and you don't want to miss this show. All right, y'all. Like I said, it is season 2, episode 6, the state of man's heart. So let me get my guest up in here. You might recognize him from 2020 Lessons, one of our King Speak shows earlier this year. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out after you watch this, you could definitely watch that because they were dropping mad gems in there about purpose and preparation. But today we are talking about the state of man's heart. So let me get Jamaal up in here.
Hello,
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. You know, this is obviously the first conversation I'm having on this good morning.
Yeah, I hear you.
I love it. I'm so glad you were available to chat today. I was looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you for reaching out. I'm trying to get my lighting right, trying to figure out which one I want.
Look, I know how it goes.
That one, like, there it is.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Well, good. I'm so glad to have you. And I chose this. So I tell people I kind of do this intuitively. And this just came on my heart. And I was like, let me reach out to him because just some of the stuff you said in our last interview, I was like, I think this would be good. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah. So when it comes to the state of man's heart, it's really just a check-in. And again, I do these conversations because I don't really feel like these are things that we talk about often. Valentine's Day is coming, love, romance, this and that. It's always about, you know, what men can do for women and all this and that. But I kind of want to see where men's minds are at in the season. So when I say so one of my first questions is, what does heart posture mean for you in the mind of a man?
I feel like my opinion is gonna be a little biased just because based on like my position, my faith, things like that. But when we talk about like a man's heart, like the posture of a man's heart, I think it's the way you carry yourself. I think it's the way, if I can just put it in a quick nutshell, it's the way you handle like adversity, you know? As a man, you're going to deal with all type of things. As a person, you're going to deal with a lot of things. And I'm sure, you know, as a woman, you know, the society norm or the societal norms that are put on your life, like trying to deal with those and maneuver through all of that. I feel like when it comes to a man, it's really just, how do you handle adversity? How do you handle your growth period? Are you hiding behind something? Are you being real about what it is that you're going through? Like, what is it? Like, what side are you on? I feel like it's fair to say that we know authentic people when we see them. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, this person is really comfortable in their skin versus this person is probably acting, you know? So when we talk about like the posture of a man's heart, I believe it's like, where are you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you really you or are you being somebody else? You know, that's what I think of.
No, I love that. And that's very well said. And, you know, we talk about it a lot on this show and Queen's Glean, but it's like, you know, are you really who you say you are, or who you believe yourself to be? But sometimes I feel like that can be a challenge. It can be a challenge for people, but we're talking about men today because society has so much to say about what you should be and how you should show up. Do you think that causes confusion in where a man believes he has to stand or how he has to show up?
Yeah, I just had that conversation last night. That's why it's funny. Because we were talking about social media, and I was saying, because everyone's like, well, social media makes it worse. And I was like, social media is like new, but the problems that men have had is not new. Like, we've been dealing with this societal pressure well before Instagram or Facebook or any of that. So like, that's the issue. The issue is what we're telling ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually. The social media and all that other stuff, it's just going to pick at insecurities. You know what I mean? But I feel like it's the things that society is telling us we must live up to or we must expect from ourselves that I think is creating the issue.
Yeah, I think so too, because you can kind of sense it. Like you said, you can kind of sense when somebody's being inauthentic. And, we give people grace. It's not to just blame or whatever, but it does take a
Mm,
certain amount of work and effort to move forward in a way where you're not so affected by the marketing and the constant messaging and the ideas of things, and to show up yourself. So, what do you think about the state of men's hearts collectively? Like, I'm sure, you're around a lot of different men, whether they're your friends or
mm,
not, but you have the opportunity to kind of check the temperature of men's hearts collectively. So what do you think?
yeah. What I would say is I don't want, to take on everybody's, heart. Just speak for that myself. Like that's unrealistic. But for like the mass amount of, men, I feel like we're in a confusing place right now. And I feel like it's creating division in our families. It's creating division between, husband, wife, brothers, friends, whatever, because you have to almost decide what side are you on. Are you gonna fall into this trap that you have to be this specific person? Or are you gonna continue to be who you feel like you are? And then I feel like when you're young, especially, because I'm not old, but I've kind of gotten through my younger stages. I'm 28, so I do remember what it was like being 22, 23, figuring out, all right, do I go this way or do I go that way? Because regardless of which side you choose, you may lose friends. You know what I mean? You may lose influence, you may lose money, you may lose a lot of different things, right? So when we talk about just where men are at right now, I feel like it's confusing because it's like, all right, do I choose this side or do I choose that side? And depending on what side you choose, you may lose out on things. So, I think it's a tough place to be in. I think we'll get it figured out, but I think right now, I think we're in a tough place.
Yeah, I definitely think you guys will figure it out. And again, I'm only saying you guys, not to say that women have it all together, but we're talking about you right now. And I know what you mean by confusing. So you mentioned like, okay, depending on what side you choose, you can lose things. Is that like a fear, a constant fear, or a hindrance if you're thinking like, oh, I might not be able to do this or lose this person or that? Like, how does that feel? What's that about?
I think you have to get into a place where you don't care about those things. But as long as you care about those things, and those things could be anything, but as long as you care, you're going to continue to fall for that societal trap, right? Like it's the moment you stop caring about, well, if I lose friends or if I lose money, or it's the moment you don't care about that, I believe you step into who you're supposed to be. But I think like trying to figure out, what I'm supposed to care about and what I'm not supposed to care about is confusing when you're being told all these different things. Um, so for me, I feel like the way to improve on something like that is we do need conversations like this where you do have people being vulnerable and giving dialogue about what they're going about what's going on in their life. So when it's being shared, it's like, all right, hey, bro, I can relate to that. I'm going through the same thing. So, but it needs to be open dialogue. There needs to be something there to where men can say, okay, I'm down to have this conversation.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that too. I believe that conversation leads to understanding,
Mm,
putting it out on the table. And so vulnerability is a good direction to go. One of the questions I had is like, do you feel like your manhood has been challenged in the arena of love, romance, and or expression? Like, have you had that moment where somebody kind of came at you because you were being real, vulnerable, and authentic, and you felt like, am I not, your manhood was challenged because of it, so to speak?
I don't want to say my man. Well, I mean, I guess you could say that. It typically comes from women, though. It doesn't really come from men because, I mean, for the most part, if you're like, let's just put it like this: if you're more aware of your emotions or you're more aware of your emotional health, other men may not be on that, but they're not going to like hinder you for being on that. It's just like, I'm not on that. But I feel like women, because obviously the context between men and women is so much different, right? So depending on how much of yourself you expose or how much of yourself you may show to somebody, typically I feel like with women, if they're not, this can be for anybody, but I feel like when a man is emotionally healthy and a woman may not be as emotionally healthy, it does come off like, why are you being sensitive, or why are you doing this, or why are you doing that, versus I actually know why he's doing this, because this is something that I've thought about. You know, I've actually had time with myself to say, hey, when a man does this, this is probably, you know what I mean? You can connect those dots. But I feel like when you're not in a healthy place emotionally, it can be rubbed the wrong way. So a lot of times men, it typically comes from women that will try you in that area where it's like, nah, it's not, don't try me. You know what I'm saying? Like this is something that I've worked on, and, you know, I do understand why I am the way that I am, but I feel like it could, you know, depending on what a woman is used to, it could come off, you know, different.
Yeah, I get that. You know, we talked about that on the last episode of Queen's Glean too, where it was just kind of like, oh, we have to see and recognize those moments where, you know, the programming hits us too. And we need grace on both sides, because, you know, society tells us a man is not a man if he's not this or that, or if he's doing this. So we receive that too. And like you said, if we're not emotionally you know, in a healthy space, then yeah, your authentic vulnerability could come off like, men aren't supposed to be doing this. And then you get the
I was just talking to my boy Nate. Yes, you know Nate.
Nate.
So I was talking to him yesterday, and so one of my homegirls. So I'm pursuing somebody, and one of my homegirls was saying, you know, you don't want to make sure that you're doing too much. And I was like, well, what is doing too much? You know? And she kind of elaborated, and I was like, I don't believe that. Like, I don't believe in you're doing too much. And the reason why I don't believe in that is like, it's fancy to call yourself a king or a queen now, right? Like it's a fancy thing. But I feel like when it comes to being a king or being a queen, not only must you like act that way, you must show people that, right? Like it's in the way that you treat them, right? So when it comes to like the way I may treat a woman, for example, or anyone, a friend, I am going to do the most because that's who I am. You know, like if we think about kings and we think about queens, didn't they do the most? You know? So it's like, what is this narrative that you don't want to do the most? Or you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know what that is. So I feel like when it does come to being a king or a queen or whatever that is, like when you believe that, you're probably going to start doing things that most people don't do. Everyone's not a king and everyone's not a queen. You know, you have to be comfortable with, regardless of how that person receives it, you were going to do that anyways because that's who you are, you know?
Yeah, I like that a lot more, because I too find it hard to like, I don't know, navigate all of this stuff that we hear. Like, it can really be a lot. And I think that you really win by just being yourself, whether it takes longer or not, at least you'll be aligned to the right person. So I think it's refreshing to see a man put in a particular effort, because that shows where your heart is. Like, back to the heart posture. It shows so much about who you are, and not only how you're showing up now, but how you're going to show up in the future, because it's who you are. When you start tailoring that to all this other stuff, that to me is when it gets confusing. But there's so much out there that says it's different. Even for women, it's always like, you know, well, men like to hunt and do that. Like, there are so many rules. Okay.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone, don't respond, wait this many days, don't do it. And it's just like, but I like him though. Like, can I just, if that's too much for him, then I mean, maybe it's gonna work.
Which is crazy, which is absolutely crazy. Like, we're adults now, but I get it. It's the game, you know, it's the game.
It's exhausting. And then there's that thing out there, well, if you're not going to play, you're going to be played and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm tired. Like, can we just be who we are?
Yeah, straight up. Can we just be ourselves? Is there a game where I could just be myself?
Let me play that one. I'm trying to get that together.
I'm down for that one.
So, well, this is actually perfect for my next question. So what are your thoughts on where the Black community is headed when it comes to therapy and healing discussions? Because this is kind of new for us, so to speak.
Yeah, I actually feel like it's getting better. You know, I actually feel like it's getting better. I feel like the Black community as a whole, we're getting better. You know, at least as far as my own life, my own experiences go. Like, I'll be in a store, you know, we got masks on, you see a brother or you see a sister, you know, you give them a head nod, you know. So when it comes to like, you know, healing, I think we're doing a lot better. I think we're going in the right direction. I think like something like this, I feel like conversations are being had. I feel like there's dialogue there, and we're admitting that, hey, we need help. You know, which is the first step. You know, if you don't admit anything, you can't address it, right? And I feel like we're having those conversations where, we are aware or cognitive of the trauma that not only we've experienced, but our parents have experienced, their parents have experienced. And I feel like so many of us can relate, right? Like I may not have grew up in the same community as another brother, but we've experienced the same things. So when we have these conversations like, hey, my auntie, that happened with my auntie too, or that happened with my dad too, so I think we're getting to a place where we're willing to have the conversation because now we're actually admitting, hey, we should probably talk about these things. We should probably communicate what's going on in our life. And then it helps that, just this whole movement that's going on right now with Black Lives Matter and, just trendy Black things on Instagram, you know what I mean? Black love, whatever it is, I feel like it's waking us up. And I feel like we'll be fine. We just got to keep going in the direction we're going in, which is nice to see, it's really nice to see.
Yeah, I've been saying some of the same things, like we're headed in the right direction. We're going to be okay. It's really nice to see, there's a lot of other stuff out there, but to be able to tune into Black marriage movement or whatever, the Instagram, Black love,
stuff. Whatever it is.
Well, all of those. Yeah, it is really nice. And, I was on Fox Soul the other day and Uncle Luke, he's on his third divorce and, he's, comes from that age where they're very adamant about not going to therapy. Our parents didn't do it. It's not going to be this. What do you think about therapy being something that's normalized these days, or even premarital counseling?
I think everyone should do it, whether your marriage is thriving or whether it's hurt. Like I think everyone needs to have, I call it the mediator, right? Like you need to have that mediator. You need to have someone that if both of y'all can't agree, you can agree on this specific thing that can get you through whatever. Because here's the thing. I've seen my mom and dad married for forever. I've seen my dad's parents married. Like I've been around marriage my whole life. I've seen love my whole life. So if there's anything that I know based on what I've seen is none of it is perfect. Everyone had issues. Everyone had up and down. And we have like this perception now that love is, if it's right, it should be perfect. It's like, nah, based on what I've seen, I can go based on what I've seen. Based on what I've seen and what I've heard, it's never like that, right? So when it comes to like counseling and stuff like that, add it in. It's only going to benefit you. I don't see how this hurts you by going in and being vulnerable. But again, that's the old stigma. We got to get rid of that. We should be past those moments of I don't need help. We all need help. I don't care who you are. We all need help. So yeah, I feel like it's, for me, when I get married, that's mandatory. I don't care if it's once a month, once a week. I don't care what that looks like, but it needs to happen because if I don't care who you talk to, when people say what are one of the most important like aspects to a relationship, whether this is with your boyfriend, whether it's with your business partner, they all say communication. Like wisdom should tell you like, hey man, I'm hearing that from a lot of people. I should probably focus on communication, and I feel like when you are in therapy, it helps bridge that gap.
Yeah, I agree, to have that neutral third party who can hear differently, because I'm even still learning about communication through friends and other things. It's like so much deeper than we're allowing ourselves to see. It's like communication includes listening, hearing, responding, and a certain level of understanding of self to even be able to speak what's on your heart and to be able to do it in a healthy manner where the other person can receive it. Like there's so many layers to it. So when it comes to canceling people, because we are in the canceling culture, we're ready to get rid of people so quickly, like you said, if it doesn't feel perfect. What is the heart posture of a man, do you feel like, or what state is a man's heart in if he's just so willing to give up? Like, is that fear? Is it really the belief that there's got to be something better? Like, where does that behavior come from?
And when we mean give up, do we like kind of, kind of elaborate a little bit further? Like give up on what? Like
a relationship,
just in general? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
A relationship, how we just cancel things, or, to be honest, I remember when I was engaged, even when it comes to work stuff, like, he was very hype about being a fitness instructor, but he failed the test the first time, whatever little test it was, and was so upset and was never willing to go at it again. Like, it kind of destroyed a part of him in a way where it was just like, where's the resiliency? Yeah. So I guess it does go beyond romantic relationship.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like that's something that is probably birthed younger, and when we don't address it, it just grows and grows and grows. You know, because the thing with me was I've had to deal with so much adversity. Like I always tell everyone this story. My mother had breast cancer while my dad was at war, right? So it was like the wildest, like when it all started happening, I was literally thinking like I could lose both my parents like that, you know.
Wow.
And it required me to be like, all right, this is just how life is. And I locked in on football, I locked in on school. I found a way to, you know, get through adversity. But that was learned. It was a behavior that had to be learned, you know. And I feel like if we never allow ourselves to, because here was the thing, I couldn't control that, right? Like if it was something that I can control, I may have bowed out too. But I couldn't, there's nothing I could do about that, you know? So I was forced to learn. And I feel like it's unfortunate, you know, that people learn the best that way. You know, sometimes it's the hard way, but that's how we learn, you know. And I feel like when it comes to resilience and it comes to getting through things, if that muscle isn't already built, they're probably gonna quit, you know. And I got to a point where I had to learn to give people grace and really understand why, because it's like, well, based on your history, I can see why, you know, it aligns with everything that, you know, you've experienced. And I feel like that's why, again, dialogue is so important, and asking the right questions, especially if you want to date somebody. Like I probably asked the most tedious, smallest questions that they're probably like, why is he like asking me that? But I'm just putting pieces together, you know? And I feel like if you don't ask like those questions and you don't know those things about people, when they show their hand, I mean, their hand was already, you know what I mean? You seen the flag a long time ago, you know, whether you want to admit that or not. So when it happens, you know, you don't want to be caught off guard by it, you know. I feel
Yeah.
like we shouldn't even put ourselves in that position, but I feel like that's the tough part. It's feeling like, well, maybe with me it may be different, or maybe, you know, it's like, nah, bro. Like people are gonna be people. That's just how it goes. So be smart with the person you choose.
That's true. And that, I mean, I have to admit, that's probably been my biggest challenge, because you want to give grace and you want to let people be who they are. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, you have to differentiate between a red flag and then, you know, just something somebody's doing or how they're moving and navigating through life. It can be very challenging. People don't always get it right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of them things.
And sometimes you feel like you can change them, and sometimes it may work. But I feel like for most people, no.
Yeah, and I guess it becomes something too. Like, is this something that you can tolerate? Is this
Mm-hmm.
almost, does your piece of the puzzle fit that one? Like, can you fill in here in a certain way? And not because there's a complete deficit, but because, you know, maybe you're stronger in that area, or maybe you have more
Mm-hmm.
experience in a way where that lack on this side is not draining you in a particular way. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it comes down to boundaries and what you can handle, which again can be
'Cause
challenging to navigate.
this isn't even only with like romantic relationships. This is like even business too. Like I have friends where it's like, I know you. Like we can't do this project together. Or maybe another project we could do together. But this one is not going to work because I know you. You're my friend. I spend time with you. You know, we're doing life together. I know what you struggle with, you know, and you know what I struggle with. So there's certain projects it's like Jamaal would be perfect for this. And there's certain projects it's like that ain't for him. And I feel like you have to know yourself, and know the people. Like, well, if you're gonna build relationships with people, get to know them. You know, don't be the only one trying to get poured into. Like, make sure you're pouring into both sides. You know, because if you're the one always, you know, you want, you're gonna notice your relationships are never gonna last long. Things are never gonna go the way you want to, because I mean, it's still, I don't like to use the word energy because everyone loves to use it, but if you're sucking everybody's energy, you know what I'm saying, and you're not putting anything out, people are gonna want to stop dealing with you, you know. And I feel like that goes in romantic relationships, business relationships, family. Like you got to be able to like give, you know. And I feel like that grows your relationships in any area.
Yeah, absolutely. That awareness, nope, totally goes to friendships too. Cause you know, you can't get in a business or do this and that with everybody because you like them. You've got to know
Mm-hmm.
who they are, what's going on, so you can make wise choices. Again, more mistakes that I've made in my life, but you live and you learn. My gosh.
Same here.
Yeah, you know, and that's how we learn. Like you were saying with the story with your parents, like it really sucks that you had to learn that way. But what a valuable lesson in the long run. And I'm glad that it worked out because it grew you to be who you are, and doesn't feel good, but it's very necessary. So one of the questions I had, let's see, I'll just go in order with this one. So, is love on the list of priorities for men? Like, are men pushing that desire away to meet society's standards of ready, or their own?
I feel like it differs, right? It kind of goes back to what I was saying. Which way did you go? Right? Did you go the way where, you know, you're focused on who you are, or did you go the way of who you feel like society is telling you to be? And based on that, that'll tell you like what this person, because here's the thing, everybody wants to be with somebody, right? Now, what that relationship looks like, I feel like, again, it depends on which way you went. Like, there's some men that I know, that I have friends that they just want somebody because they don't want to be by themselves, right? They don't want no commitment. They don't want anything there. They just want to be by themselves. And I also know men, including myself, I feel like I kind of fall in this category where I want that, but only if it's something that I can maintain, that I can hold, and that can grow. If I can't do that, and it's not that it needs to be perfect. It just has to be able to grow. And if it can't grow, then I don't want to waste time, right? So I feel like it's a priority for both, but the way you go about it is differently, right? But I don't know too many men who are just good with being alone. I don't know too many people who are good with being alone. You know, you can say what you want and say, I don't need a relationship, money over women, da da da. You can yell all that all you want, but at the end of the day, when it's late in the night and you by yourself and all your friends boot up, you can't call nobody. You know, you're gonna want somebody to be with you. Period. Now, what you like are actually expecting out of that, I mean, that's gonna differ from man to man. But everyone wants something. Period. I don't know anyone. I mean, you can lie, but everyone's fronting. You want something. You know, so it's a priority. It's definitely a priority.
Okay, that's good to hear, because, you know, sometimes people are like, well, you know, we've talked about this, like, I don't make enough money to do it, or this or that. I know I was listening to King Jay Barnett. He had a live on Instagram, and he was talking about the same thing you are talking about, how men choose who they want to be. And it's never really too much about the woman, but it's like, do you want to be a cheater, or do you want to be a good husband? Do you want to be, so it seems to be this choice, you know, you can go down this road or that road. So, and there's a lot of nuances that, you know, kind of make that happen. So I wrote down that it said that men are not as resilient as women when it comes to bouncing back from heartbreak. You can let me know if you agree, but how do men actively heal from broken hearts? And if that's not a discussion, what do you think are some things that can be done to heal so you can open back up?
I agree with you. I don't think it's not that men aren't as resilient. I just feel like women are just on another level. I was reading something, and it had like Gabrielle Union, and it had somebody else who got cheated on or something. It was like women have healing powers like Wolverine. And I'm like, bro, yes, y'all do. I see women heal from the craziest things. But no, I feel like when it comes to men, especially matters of the heart, right? When it comes to healing those things, and this can be from a relationship, it can be from your childhood trauma, it can be anything, right? I don't think that we heal because we don't know how, right? Like, we're told, hey, bro, you got to go make money, or you need to be this, or you need to be that. So that's our focus, right? No one is telling us, hey, you should be wary of your emotions. You should probably meditate. You should probably do these. No one's offering those things, right? So how can you heal if you don't know how? And even if I knew, because I'll use myself for example, I was in a long-term relationship, right? And then we broke up, and I went to being like most men do, like, oh, I was in a relationship, so now I'm about to, you know, go out here and be dumb, right? And what I realized was not only was I hurt, but I was hurting other people. So I'm like, I had to take a step back. Here's the crazy thing about it. I was okay with still being hurt. It didn't bother me until I realized I was hurting other people. That's what made me step back and be like, okay, I probably should fix something here, right? But again, I was okay with being hurt, right? Like, I was still going to work. I was still grinding. I was still going after the things that I wanted because that's what I was told I should be doing. Oh, ignore that. You need to be about your money. You need to be on your hustle. You need to be on your grind. But it's like, hold on. I can't even do that at a high level when it's kind of like running with a bad hamstring. You know, like, yeah, I'm fast, but my hamstring hurt, you know? So no one's gonna really know how fast I am because I'm hurt. So I feel like it's the same thing with matters of the heart. Like you're not gonna really know what type of man you are, and forget about relationships. I'm talking about just being a man, like really living up to who you are called to be. You're not gonna be able to do that if you can't address, you know, the pains and the hurts in your life. Like you have to tackle those because I don't care if you're rich, I don't care if you're poor. At some point, they'll be exposed. But we have to figure out how. Like, how do we have what can we create? Like, you know, what structure can we add into people's life to where they can do this day by day and actually add something into their life to make a change, you know? And I don't feel like we're doing that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it's interesting too that you say like you were okay with being hurt, but like you know, it is like running with a hurt hamstring, you can move, but yeah, so I'm guessing there's a lot of people out there who are just like, yeah, I'm hurt, but whatever. I mean, I even feel like I went through that when I first, you know, it didn't work out with the guy that I was gonna marry. I was just like, well, I'm gonna just work and I'm gonna do this and that. And I did the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. And I didn't even realize I was hurt. And it wasn't so much that I was hurting other people, I was hurting myself. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, girl, you're trying to numb out and you're trying to outperform the
Mm-hmm.
pain, and that's not going to work because when you go home and you're by yourself and all of these distractions are done, you still feeling some kind of way,
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
and I had no idea either. I had no idea like what to do about it, so I
Mm-hmm.
completely get that.
And as a man, we try and drown that, you know, like
Whew.
that, going home and dealing with that, like, cause I drowned it. I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely drowned it. And I was good at drowning it, which was crazy. Which ultimately makes it worse because at some point it shows up. You know, it may not have showed up. Like for me, luckily it showed up, you know, sooner than later. But for some men, they already married, got kids, all this other stuff, and then bam. Now stuff that happened when I was 23 just came out, you know. But you gotta address it. You gotta address it. It's the only way.
That is really powerful, especially because I see, well, gosh, I love that you mentioned it comes out because, yeah, you could push something down so long and then end up in a situation and you think you're good. Now your whole family is suffering because you never
Mm-hmm.
worked on, you know, that thing. So do you think that this is tied to the pain, but how influential do you believe your relationship with your mother is on romantic relationships and how you view women in general?
Man, that she explains me all together. Like when you meet my mom, you'll be like, I understand him way more now. Like my mom was the here's the thing, I grew up on love. Like how they say like it takes a village, you know what I mean, to raise a child. Like I can literally leave my house to this day, I'm 28 now. I can leave my house, like my best friend, he lives around the corner. I can go to his house, he'll be in Utah or something, and I'll kick it with his family. You know, like, and it's like that everywhere. So I grew up on love. And I say that to say my mother was like the general of that, right? Like she was the one everyone calls Miss Jackie mom. She's mom to everyone, right? So we just had like she's one of my best friends. So she was giving me game on just how to deal with women, how to treat women, how to like you know handle yourself as a man. She was telling me that I could remember being in the kitchen in middle school, you know, and having those type of conversations. So now when I'm 28 and I'm seeing it all play out, I'm like, damn, my mom was right, you know, about so much. So I feel like she has everything to do with why I am, you know, the way I am, especially with the way I treat women, because I do see it like, all right, my mom taught me this is what you do, you know, and I feel like the wise man typically holds on to the things that their parents have taught them, right? Like that's not something that you're gonna let go. So when it comes to women, it's just like any other thing. Like the same way my mom told me, hey, you need to work hard to be successful, da da da. It's the same thing when it comes to women. Like you got to work hard in your relationships. You got to treat women right. You got to do those things. So she was like the most influential, you know, person in my life when it comes to romantic relationships because she was the one that taught me, you know.
That's amazing. Shout out to Miss Jackie. She's
Yeah.
holding it down.
What I will say though is, and I'll give a shout out to my pops because my mom was able to do what she was able to do because she didn't have to play the man's role, right? She like in the black community, a lot of times mom got to be mom and dad, so they lose out on the sensitive side, especially raising a man. You know what I mean? You kind of miss out on being mommy because you got to be dad, right? So that emotional side that I was able to tap into early. A lot of men don't get that because their mom wasn't able to do that, not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't, you know. So shout outs to my pops for being able to, stand up and do what he did. Especially because it's crazy because he's in the military. So sometimes he'd be gone, and the way he was still able to structure the home from Iraq is nuts, right? So my mom was able to really be a mom because she didn't have to worry about all the other stuff.
That's
Which
so
I think needs to
beautiful.
be, needs to be. I mean, it's an issue, especially in our homes,
It is. And, it was a big part of why I do, King Speak too, because it's like, it's definitely not to blame men for not being here, what they're not doing, but it's like, y'all really are the head in a particular
Mm-hmm.
way. And what you do or don't do trickles down. And this is
Yep.
about family. And our family structure, there's a huge crack in that foundation. And I believe it's probably the main cause of all of the bull that we go through.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can heal the men and the relationships between men and women, we now have families back. So the
Mm-hmm.
children have an opportunity to get what you got, because that's
Yep.
so important. Uh, women, we got to be able to be women. And as much as we reject, I can do this, or I want to work. And, we have this thing where we're like, don't put me in a box. I don't want gender roles. And
Mm-hmm.
that's cool, but we got roles. Like, even if you're in a
Yeah. Huh.
company, somebody's the CFO, somebody, or else we just all doing what?
And
So,
they're so necessary. Like the roles are. Listen, there's certain things that women can. I don't care how great you are, how strong you are. There's certain things that women can't do that men can, and there's certain things that men can't do that women can. And that's not to say that you're weaker or that like that conversation is ridiculous. It's about knowing your role and really like thriving in your role. Like using my mom for an example, like that's who she is. Like she grew up in an abusive home, right? Like my mom, she doesn't know her dad. She's seen her mom get abused. She's seen all that. So my mom was like, that's not going to happen to me, right? I'm going to make sure I excel in the things that I lacked, right? And she was able to do that because my dad was able to do what he was doing, right? So my dad, if let's say if that's something because my dad grew up in a home where they aren't emotional, like literally, like to this day, telling my grandma I love you is the funniest thing ever because sometimes she gets choked up, like I don't even know what to say, right? So now my dad, he like my mom is focusing on love, right, while my dad has never really, been able to express that. So then when you bring those two things together, like she didn't have structure, he had structure. He didn't have emotion, they did. So when you bring those things together and then now you have kids, what I'm saying? That's healthy, right? And that's what I mean by it doesn't need to be perfect. But as long as it can grow, you got a chance.
yeah, that's that puzzle piece. Even this deficit, it's not a bad thing, but if I'm better and I have more weight over here and we come together, like you said, that sounds like a real well-rounded upbringing. And the more you know about yourself and how to navigate is definitely going to bring that to the forefront. And I just love that. I love that you had that dynamic. I did too. It was a little bit different, but I had both my parents. So it
Mm-hmm.
was such a well-rounded opportunity. But I also love that what we didn't get, so to speak, from our parents, it does push us to want to give that to our
Mm-hmm.
children in a different way.
Fact.
So I love
Big
that.
fact.
Okay. So here's, I know you can answer this. What are some of the things that women do that make a man want to close his heart off to her instantly?
Wow. That's a steep one. Let me start with me. With what I don't like. Here's the thing: is like I am who I believe myself to be, right? Like I love to believe myself to be authentic and real and da da da. So when I'm doing that and when I'm being that, um, don't and it sucks because sometimes I understand sometimes because it's based on like your history or your upbringing, right? But don't like push away or look at me, in any kind of way outside of who I'm showing you to be, right? Like if I'm showing you to be this person, quit being so skeptical because what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna say, oh, okay, you know, like maybe you're not the one, or maybe like this just isn't right, and I'm gonna move on. And I could have been right for you, and you could have been right for me, right? But because you pushed away, because of whatever reason, right? So the thing that bothers me is if I'm gonna be real and I'm gonna be authentic with you, don't like hide, because to me it's like, all right, you got a lot going on in there, you know, because I'm big on emotional health, right? I feel like our world is too crazy for me to add you into my life and then you make it crazier. Like, to me, I can deal with a lot of stuff. Like, I was in a long-term relationship. I've seen married. Like, I'm pretty flexible. I can deal with a lot of things. But what I cannot deal with is just an unhealthy, like, emotional life. You know, like, for me, I will run from women that are just like unhealthy emotionally. And I think for most men, I think that's typically the case, right? Because as long as a man can like grow and be him, here's my perspective on relationships, right? My mom always said, when you're 20, you're gonna be 20. When you're 30, you're gonna be 30. When you're 40, you're gonna be 40. You're gonna be these different people all the time. So can I be with somebody that it's easy to be with me right now when I'm 28 and we young and we out here, you know what I'm saying? But what happens when I'm 50? You know what I'm saying? What happens when I'm 40? Or what happens, you know what I mean? Can you grow with me? And I feel like if you're not even in the emotional space to be able to grow, there's no way we're going to grow for 30 plus years. You can't even grow now, you know? So I feel like for men, that runs most men off. Now, emotional health may look different for everybody. There may be some men that can deal with, you know, some women who may not be the most emotionally healthy because they may not be the most emotionally healthy, you know? So it's really about what, like you said, what can you deal with? But I feel like that's the thing. It's the women that, you know, spaz out, and I always call it a 0 to 100. Like, you need to go from 0 to 40 sometimes, or 0 to 30. Anytime you're going from 0 to 100, I gotta run, because at this point it ain't about me. You know, there's something else going on in there, and I'm not dealing with that. So I feel like that'll close me up real quick.
Yeah, that is so fair, and it makes perfect sense. And I love that you brought up the fact, because, you know, there's this whole narrative too, like, oh, guys be like, oh, she's crazy, oh, she's spicy, blah, blah, blah. And some of us girls look like, okay, but you like that? Like, y'all are arguing and on and off all the time, and you think that that's amazing?
Oh,
Like,
no,
we're confused.
I can't do that. You know, I can't. I do not play about that. That's my thing. But I'm saying, I feel like most men don't. Like, now, don't get it twisted. They may still be there, and there may be some unhealthy love. But let's just be honest, that usually never ends well. You know, that never really turns out to a happily ever after story. At some point, it all collapses and it falls, right? So, and I mean, for good reasons. Like, that's not healthy. That's not right. Like, no one should be, you know, on that. So I feel like for me, that's what I'm looking for. I'm down to talk to the girl who's more emotionally healthy, but may not bring as much to the table, because I know as a man, I feel like, all right, I can help you, you know, grow in financially, or I can help you grow. You know, obviously I'm a trainer, so it's like, look, we can get on our gym stuff, we can get on our eating stuff. Like, I'm down to work with you in any area that I know I bring value. Like, that's not a problem, because I do that for people on a daily basis anyway. Why would I not do that for someone I care about? But if you're not in a place to even be able to accept, like, you know what I mean, help, or I can't help you. At this point, it's like, you got to take this to somebody else, because I for sure ain't gonna try.
Yeah.
Not me, not I.
Not you. Mm-hmm. No, I feel you. And that's very mature. Like, you have a great level of emotional maturity and intelligence. And that's really beneficial. I think it's only going to, these seeds that you're planting in self-mastery in yourself, and even sharing this and what you do in work, are going to grow things that are going to grow healthy. It's a fertile soil to grow healthy things. And you're totally doing your part by showing up. Even though it might seem small, it's like, no, but you are going to get married one day and have children and do all this. And this has everything to do with the whole trajectory of where we're headed. What you do, how you think, how you choose, and who you decide to be. So,
because I'm big on breaking the cycles. You know, there's too many cycles going on in our life for you not to choose to break one. Now, if you can break them all, do that. But you got to choose one to where it's like, all right, I'm not going to let that one fly. I got to be the one to, and if that means I have to take on hurts and pains and all this other stuff to stop my child from having to deal with that, or maybe his child from having to deal with that, then I'm willing to take that bullet. You know, I always bring up slavery, for example. The reason why I respect them so much is because they were fighting for something that they knew they would never see. Imagine that. You know, we're fighting for things that we hope we can see. They're fighting for things they knew they weren't going to see. So I feel like that takes strength. And I feel like if we can all have that heart, you know what I mean, that posture, you know, we'd be in a better place, period.
Yeah, I agree. I heard one day that if the problem you're trying to solve can be solved in this generation, it's probably not big enough. And
Yeah.
that hit me because we do
Facts.
come, like we
Facts.
want to see everything now. We want to plant our seeds and we outside like, did you grow yet? Do we got the flowers?
Yeah.
Not
Don't work like that.
realizing exactly like the trees that we see. That was the people who planted that, they're gone, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
That's good.
yeah, I definitely agree with that there. So this is, and well, good answer for that. So this is my last question for you. Um, what are some ways that men can grow to be less offended by the backlash you guys get for being soft, for wanting to engage in the sappy stuff? Meaning like, I know, well, what I've heard is that men do care a lot about what others say about them or being perceived as like a simp or soft or whatever it is. But like, what are some ways that guys can grow to be less offended by that stuff and just walk in the reality of who they are, even if it does get sappy sometimes?
Yeah. I feel like it can't just be if you wanted to change that, right? That narrative about yourself or dealing with those things. It's you don't handle that by addressing that, right? You handle it by addressing like your inner self, right? So I don't for me personally, there my like anyone would tell you, Jamal's biggest critic is Jamal, right? So when someone else says something to me, like, bro, I done told myself these things so many times that there is nothing that you can tell me, that is going to keep me from going to sleep at night, right? And I feel like we have to get to a place where we're working on ourselves so much that things like that don't matter anymore, right? Because at the end of the day, you won't ever fail something. I think I just saw this. You won't ever fail something because of what someone else told you, but you will fail 100% of the time from what you told yourself, right? So if you're telling yourself these negative things, like that's what's gonna happen, right? Like we are, our minds are. I don't think we understand how strong they really are, So what are you feeding yourself? Like don't be telling yourself things that you have no business telling yourself, because at the end of the day, you can say whatever you want. You can call a man a simp. You can call him whatever you want. But I know women who like this. You know what I'm saying? I know plenty of women who may really like what you're doing. Now that one may not, and that's fair. But there are plenty of people who actually are praying for you to come in and be who you already are. Now you're trying to change it. Now you taking blessings away from people. And all you needed to do to be the blessing was just be yourself. But we have to get to a point where you're always one of the leaders in my life says you should always reevaluate your heart. Because when you're constantly reevaluating your heart, you're always going to be in growth mode. You're never going to stop growing because you're always going to keep checking yourself. Like, okay, where am I striving at? Where am I getting a little too cocky at? Where am I not growing enough? Like, and I feel like when you are always about self growth, those things like hearing about what people, you're not gonna care about that. You're too busy. You know what I mean? You're too busy about yourself and growing yourself to be worried about what somebody else think about you. If you got time to worry about what someone else thinking about you, you're not working hard enough. Period. That's the way I see it. Now I'm not saying that you won't hear the things. I'm not even saying that they won't, kind of poke at you a little bit. But for them to change you, yeah, you're giving it too much. So I feel like when it comes to that, because I'm the hopeless romantic. I like to do all the romantic stuff. But that's what I mean. Like I've been like that. I grew up on that, right? So no one can tell me otherwise. But for someone who may not have grew up in the same context that I did, I would just tell that man, like, if that's who you feel like that's who you're supposed to be, bro, you're right. Keep walking. Don't worry about what your homie's saying. Don't worry about what old girl is saying, because I promise you somebody needs that.
That's good. That's really powerful. And it's an inside job, is what I hear in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of brings our conversation full circle. That's what we're talking about here when it comes to the collective and society and what's going on. The more we can tune in and check the posture of our heart. I love that. Your mentor is brilliant. Reevaluate your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you. You gave such great insight. But again, like you said, I don't think that that's something that we're learning, and especially so much in conversations amongst men. But
Yeah.
because we're all human, I only think women can be more resilient and bounce back from heartbreak and things like that because we've been given permission and modalities to do so from a very young age. It's like if you see a little girl crying, it's nothing. But little boy, especially if the home is broken, I have friends who are single moms and they are intentionally really tough on their boys because they don't want to ill prepare their boys for the world. But at the same time, yeah, how much is that little boy missing of being her baby? You know what I mean? And being able to grow that. So there's just so many things that I think we have the opportunity in this season, if you will. And by season, I mean our lifetime.
Yeah.
To like turn this thing around so that there's the freedom for us to like be humans. Men are men, women are women, but there are some things that are just so the same that I love inviting that in. So I love the reevaluate your heart because that takes work and introspection.
Yeah. Like I always tell everybody, like, yeah, I know we get caught into like the male roles, the female roles, but we all come from a God that created both, right? So it's like, we in this together. We are in this together. So we're gonna have to figure this out together, or we can keep being mad at each other and not, find the happiness that I think we all deserve, So we'll see what side we fall on. Yeah.
Right. It's a choice.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we're coming up on our hour. Before we get out of here, is there anything that you feel led to share, or just want to share with the men or the women listening or tuned into the show?
I feel like I want to share this for people, like both men and women. Be patient with yourself, and the moment you can learn to be patient with yourself is the moment you can learn to be patient with other people, right? Like, quit thinking that. I feel like I don't know if I'm tripping, but I feel like a lot of people are single right now because it's a lot of conversations about being single. It's a lot of conversations about relationships and what you don't like and da da da. And that's all good. I have no issue with that. But what I am gonna say is when you are in your single season, like if you are believing to get married and be with somebody, like take your singleness serious. Don't be out here being dumb. Don't be out here, living the way that, like, you can't live one way and ask for another thing, right? If that's what you want, you got to commit to that. Otherwise, don't cry about, what you get. So for everybody, just be patient with yourself. Be patient with other people. That person is not going to be, come to you with a bow tied around them. You may have to do a little bit of work. So I just hope everybody just is in a healthy place to where, or at least working towards being in a healthy place to where you can find the person, the job, the community that you feel like you belong in,
Gosh, that is such great advice. And when it comes to singleness, it is this, instead of like, oh, I'm single, I want a man, I want a woman, I'm looking. You're right. That patience with how you treat yourself is going to be not only how you teach someone else to treat you, but how you have grown in those areas to treat someone else. Patience, grace. You ain't showing up with a little bow on either, boo.
Yeah, not at all.
So
I actually put on my page, I have a video where I talk about 3 things that you should focus on when you're single. So whoever, is in that single season, definitely check it out, man. Follow me at J_Pence, J_Pence. You see it underneath. But yeah, I talk about 3 different things. There it is. I talk about 3 different things that we could, there's many things, but the 3 things I think we should focus on in your single season. So y'all check that out.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so follow Jay there. Good Lord. J_Pence on Instagram. And what else can we find on your Instagram? Just let people know. I see you got CMOS and I do buy it, but I can actually get it from you now since I know you. It is something I replenish or whatever you.
Well, yeah, wherever you get it. I mean, it's all the same depending on where you're getting it from, though. But I feel like where you at, you good. But hey, more the merrier. But yeah, just online training, group training, obviously in-person training, stuff like that. I do a little modeling on the side, which has been fun. Trying to keep that rolling. So just look out for that more than anything. So I have what is called Live Spiritually Fit. I'm building this little brand as we speak, but it's called Live Spiritually Fit, right? So all I literally do is just give game on just different areas of life. It could be about love. It could be about, God. It could be about your health. About anything, So definitely check those out.
I love it. Love your energy. Love your mindset. So you guys stay tapped in with Jamaal. Thank you guys so much for watching. Those who are catching the replay, thanks for tuning in. The Queens, we're coming on Thursday. Queens Glean. We're going to talk about all the major points that you talked about so we can get the women's perspective and honor yours as well. But yes, thank you so much for your time and for coming up in here and for those of you watching. So please follow Kings Speak on Instagram. We will see you the Tuesday after next for the next episode, but be back here Thursday for Queens Glean. All right, Jamaal.
All right,
Thank
Jaimi.
you.
Stay safe. All right.
To you
Appreciate
too.
you.
Bye.